says that the enemy loves it when we are religious because religion does not affect anything in spiritual realms. Religion is ceremony. And ceremonial things only point to the things that are real. You can go through an exercise of ceremony, and we talked about this at 8 o'clock, and it points to everything that is significant, but the ceremony in and of itself is an exercise or display, so to speak, of what is real. And what I mean by that, it is not the acting out of it, but it is the pointing to it. And it's just like a graduation ceremony. If you don't participate in a graduation ceremony, it doesn't mean you don't graduate. You've already done the work. The ceremony only points to what you've achieved. And a lot of times what happens is in religious worship service, we don't come and worship, we have ceremony. And ceremony points to worship. Ceremony says that worship will produce this and worship will produce that, and these are symbols of what worship will produce, but it's not the reality of it. And the devil loves it when we just come together and group together with all this power and have ceremony. He loves it when we come together and point to worship but don't worship. He loves it when we come together and point toward praise but don't actually praise. He loves it when we come together and we have doxologies and responsive readings and all stand, all rise for the responsive reading. But in the reading, there is no response. You're reading something that you ain't responding to. If it was a real responsive reading, whatever we were reading, we should be responding to. The Lord is good and worthy to be praised. Mighty are the works of his hand. That's a responsive reading. I respond. How can I have a responsive reading and not respond? That's ceremony. How can I stand to read the scripture but the word doesn't stand up in me? That's ceremony. And the enemy loves ceremony. But he can't stand worship. Because when you enter into worship, he loses any form of control over you. When you enter into worship, he cannot manipulate you. He cannot entice you. He cannot. Ceremony, he'll join in with that. When the sons of God came to present themselves before God, he joined in because that was just the ceremonial part. But then when God started speaking, he couldn't participate with the sons of God. God said, what are you doing here? See, at some point, ceremony ought to lead you to God. But if you never arrive at the feet of God, the throne of God, the face of God, the ceremony is in vain. And what the Lord is going to compel us with today is that we have to become a people who have to get beyond a religious approach and understand that there are warring factors in the spirit realm who seek to keep us from achieving and acquiring what God is placing and doing in our lives. And what we have to understand that today that Pastor Harris leaned over to me and he said, something in the atmosphere. I said, yeah, I know. The word's going to deal with it. Because the very thing I'm preaching about is in the atmosphere. Yeah. The enemy hates it. Every time, if I start preaching about demons, if I start preaching about anything that's directly spiritual, that spirit will manifest in the atmosphere. Here's why. It does not want to be exposed. So the fact that the spirit is here is a confirmation for me because that punk is scared. He's going to get cast out. And I'm here to tell him he is. And so I'm glad you came to the fight because it's hard to fight when the enemy don't show up. So I'm glad that the spirit of discouragement came to the party today because I want to whip you face to face. feel like I need to preach in this camp today. You will not hold my brothers and sisters' promise. You will not keep us out of our land. You will not keep us from where God has us to go. We will fight you and we will overcome you. Hey! You will not deceive us anymore. They were positioned as to discourage you from coming in and taking what's rightfully yours. In other words, you have to be mindful that the devil has set up points of discouragement in our life that play on our minds and play on our thinking and play on our spirit, that as you get closer to the goals that God has set for you, you have to be aware in the spirit that as I'm approaching the time and the place and the thing that God has told me, that I've got to be alert and aware in my spirit that one of the ways that the enemy is going to try to stop me is to discourage me. Because if he can ever get discouragement in me, discouragement will stop me from fighting the battle that's really mine. Discouragement will cause me to not go forward, but to retreat and turn around and never realize my promise. So discouragement is a tremendous weapon of the enemy. And you have to be able to understand, to discern how discouragement operates and what it thrives on. One of the things that discouragement is going to do in our life when it is present in our life, it is going to always magnify the negative circumstances of your life. Discouragement is going to look at everything that is negative and explode it and make it bigger and make you believe that the problem is more insurmountable, bigger, and you're unable to overcome it. It's going to cause you to look at yourself in a distorted way. It causes you to decrease your strength and decrease your might and decrease your ability and magnify anything that opposes you. They looked in the land and they saw giants. They saw fortresses that went all the way up to the heaven. Now, how you saw something? How did you see something that expanded all the way to the heaven? That was an eye of discouragement. A spirit of discouragement was magnifying the thing that's trying to keep you out. And you have to understand, there ain't no way in the world a man built a wall up to heaven. It looks tall, but if a man built it, I can overcome it. If a man, you hear what I'm saying? If a man raised it up, then I can climb over it. He's a man just like me. But discouragement will make you look at men and make you believe that they are greater, almost supernatural, superhuman, more so than you. And the spirit of discouragement will have you to back off of something that God has clearly given you victory over, but you'll back off of it because in your perception, you now have a distorted view. You have to understand when you're not even speaking clearly, when you're not even talking right. You got to be able to sometimes stop and listen to yourself, and you got to know when you're talking crazy. You got to hear yourself when you are talking, and you are talking about your enemy, talking about your problem. Sometimes in the midst of you saying it, you ought to hear yourself and get mad at the words that are coming out of your mouth, that you're giving more glory to your problem. I don't know what I'm going to do. I never had anything come at me like this before. It's the hardest thing I've ever went through. And God is standing there saying, what? You're going to listen to discouragement when I'm talking to you? You're going to talk yourself out of it?